The command center fell silent as Commander Tarani secured the pirate captain and handed him off to his guards for detention medical. Officer Halis slipped into the room behind him, her fox-like ears pressed flat against her head as she studied the human girl who stood motionless in the center of the spacey Una. Had not moved since Tarani entered. Her small hands hung at her sides and her dark eyes tracked every movement in the room with an intensity that made even the battle-hardened Kelthian uncomfortable. "The station is secure," Tarani reported. Though he suspected she already knew, "Your actions saved many lives tonight." "How many died?" Una Tarani hesitated. 14 guards and 31 refugees. Something flickered across Una's face. "Too fast to identify. I should have been faster." "You are a child," Tarani said. "The fact that you did anything at all is remarkable." "I am not a child," Una replied quietly. "I have not been a child since I was 4 years old." She moved to the main console and pulled up a holographic display. Her fingers danced across the controls with the expertise of someone who had spent years studying galactic technology. "This is what you need to understand," she said. The display showed a simple document, heavily redacted but still readable in places. Project Chrysalis Human Adaptive Protection. Initiative Classification Level Maximum. When humanity joined the galactic community, we were vulnerable, Una explained, her voice taking on a distant quality, as if she were reciting something she had memorized long ago. "We had no natural weapons, no special abilities, no genetic advantages, and other species looked at us and saw prey." She swiped to the next document. "But humans have one thing that most other species do not, and that is neurological plasticity. The ability of our brains to adapt and rewire themselves based on training and experience, and this plasticity is strongest in children." "Project Chrysalis," Holly said softly. Understanding dawning in her empathic eyes, Una nodded. "They identified children with exceptional neural adaptability and recruited us with our families. Consent for a specialized training program. And by the time we were 12 years old, we had completed more combat and tactical training than most species receive in a lifetime." Tarani stared at the child before him and tried to reconcile what he was seeing with what he was hearing. "Your government trained children to be soldiers." "Not soldiers," Una corrected. "Protectors, and there is a difference." She pulled up another file. "We are trained to be invisible, to blend in with any environment, to appear harmless while remaining ready to act at any moment, and our mission is never to attack but only to defend the colony ship," Tarani said. "You were protecting someone." "Ambassador Sojin Kang and her diplomatic staff," Una confirmed. "They were traveling to a summit to negotiate trade agreements with the Thesari Consortium, and I was assigned as their invisible shield." Her voice wavered slightly for the first time. "I failed them, and the ship was destroyed before I could do anything, and someone on the inside gave away our route, and someone betrayed us." Halise stepped forward with compassion radiating from her small form. "You were placed in an escape pod and you survived, and that is not failure." "Ambassador Kang put me in that pod," Una said. "She knew what I was, and she knew I was the only one who might survive, and she told me to find whoever did this and make sure it never happened again." She turned to face Tarani directly. "The pirate captain gave me a name before you arrived, and Counselor Dreth Mavin ordered the attack on my transport and paid these pirates to attack this station when he learned I had survived." Tarani felt the information settle into place like pieces of a puzzle he had not known he was solving. "Counselor Mavin is one of the most powerful members of the Galactic Council," he said slowly. "Accusing him of murder and piracy without absolute proof would be political suicide." "I know," Una said. "That is why I need to find the proof." She pulled up the station's sensor logs. when the pirates attacked. Their command ships stayed at range, and only the boarding vessels approached. And that command ship is still out there waiting to pick up their people. It withdrew when our patrol ships responded to our distress call. Tarani confirmed. We assumed it fled. It did not flee, Una said. It is waiting because Counselor Mevin cannot afford to leave witnesses, and right now we are all witnesses, as if summoned by her words. An alarm began blaring throughout the station. Commander. His tactical officer's voice crackled through the communication system. A new ship just dropped out of hyperspace and it is broadcasting Galactic Council identification codes, and they claim they are here to assist with the crisis. Tarani's scales prickled with sudden unease. Which council member? A pause. Counselor Dreth Mevin. Sir. Una's expression did not change, but her stance shifted almost imperceptibly, her weight settling onto the balls of her feet, her hands loosening at her sides. He is coming to clean up, she said. He will claim the pirates were dealt with, and then everyone who knows the truth will disappear. He cannot simply kill a station full of people. Halij protested. He destroyed a diplomatic transport with over 200 souls aboard, Una replied. Do you think he will hesitate to destroy a refugee station? Tarani made his decision. We need evidence, he said. Something that directly links Mevin to the attack on your transport. And to this assault. Una nodded. The pirate captain will not testify against him because dead men cannot speak, and Mevin will ensure he never reaches trial. Then we need something else. Una's eyes moved to the console. The pirate command ship, she said. Before their communications went down, I intercepted fragments of encrypted messages between the pirates and their employer, and the encryption is Mevin Corporation proprietary technology. Can you break it? No. But I do not need to, Una said. The encryption keys are stored on the command ship's main computer, and if we can access that ship, we can decrypt the messages and prove the connection. Tarani considered the tactical situation. Mavin's ship is approaching, and the pirate vessel is still out there somewhere. And we have limited resources and no backup coming for hours. We do not need backup, Una said. We need a distraction. She looked up at the towering Kelthian commander with eyes that held far too much knowledge for someone her age. I have a plan, but I need you to trust me. Tarani thought about everything he had witnessed this night. The impossible combat skills, the tactical brilliance, the single-minded dedication to protecting innocence. He thought about the children she had saved and the pirates she had defeated and the truth she had uncovered, and he made a choice that would change the course of galactic history. Tell me your plan, Commander Vest Tarani said. I am listening. For the first time since she had climbed out of that escape pod. Something like a smile crossed Una Park's face. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had finally cornered her prey. Counselor Dreth Maven's diplomatic vessel docked with processing station. This arrived exactly 37 minutes after his arrival was announced. Commander Tarai stood at the docking bay with a formal honor guard, his expression carefully neutral. As the airlock cycled open, Counselor Mevin was everything his species was known for. Tall and graceful with luminescent skin that seemed to glow from within and features so perfectly symmetrical they appeared artificial. He wore robes of office that cost more than most beings earned in a decade, and his smile was warm and utterly false. Commander Tarani, Mevin said, his voice smooth as polished glass. I came as quickly as I could when I heard about this terrible attack, and the Council is deeply concerned about the safety of refugees in this sector. Your concern is appreciated, Counselor, Tarani replied. As you can see, we have managed to contain the situation. Yes, most impressive. Mavin's eyes swept the bay with practiced ease, lingering on the guards and the security arrangements. I understand you captured several of the pirates, and I would very much like to speak with them, of course. I will have them prepared for questioning." Maven nodded graciously, but his gaze continued to search. "I also heard reports of a human child found among the refugees, a survivor from that unfortunate transport incident, and I trust she is being well cared for." There it was, the real reason he had come. "The child is resting in the medical bay," Tarani said smoothly. "The trauma of her experience has left her quite fragile. Naturally. Poor thing, and perhaps I should visit her myself and offer the council's condolences." "That would be most kind, Counselor." Tarani led Mevin and his personal guards through the station toward the medical bay. What the counselor did not know was that Yuna was not in the medical bay. She was currently aboard a small maintenance shuttle approaching the pirate command ship that lingered at the edge of sensor range. The plan had been simple. Tarani would keep Mevin occupied while Yuna infiltrated the pirate vessel and retrieved the evidence they needed. Pirate crew had been thrown into chaos by the destruction of their ground forces and their communications. They would not be expecting a single small shuttle to approach with running lights dark and emissions dampened. Aduna guided the shuttle into a blind spot on the pirate ship's hull and activated the magnetic clamps she had perhaps 20 minutes before. Mevin realized something was wrong. 20 minutes to find the computer core, decrypt the communications, and transmit the evidence to Galactic Guard Command. She cut through the hole with a plasma torch and slipped inside. The pirate vessel was a converted freighter with corridors that twisted and turned without logical pattern. Yuna navigated by memory, recalling the ship schematics she had studied during her training. Every freighter of this class had the same basic layout, and the computer core would be near the center of the vessel. She encountered her first crew member 3 corridors in. He was aboard looking Drexian, performing a routine patrol. He never saw Harry. Yuna left him unconscious in a storage closet and continued. The computer core was guarded by 2 more pirates who were arguing about whether to abandon the ship and flee. Yuna listened to their conversation from the shadows. "Mevin will kill us if we run," one said. "Mevin will kill us if we stay," the other replied. "Did you not hear what happened on the station? And something took out an entire boarding force. Something or someone. Does it matter? And I say we take our cut and disappear?" They never got the chance. Yuna struck fast and silent, and within moments she was alone in the computer core with access to everything she needed. The encryption was complex, but she had the keys now, and the messages decoded quickly. What she found was even worse than she had expected. Maven had not just ordered the attack on her transport, had been selling refugee route information to pirates for years, profiting from the displacement of millions of beings while presenting himself as a humanitarian champion. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, communication logs, even video of Maven personally negotiating with pirate Captain Suna. Transmitted everything to Galactic Guard Command and to every major news network in the sector. Then she set the pirate ship's reactor to overload and headed for her shuttle back. On the station, Counselor Mevin had just discovered that the medical bay was empty. "Where is the girl?" he demanded, his smooth voice cracking with sudden urgency. Rai smiled. "I imagine she is somewhere quite inconvenient for you, Counselor." Mevin's mask of civility shattered. "You have no idea what you have done," he snarled. "I will destroy you. I will destroy this station. I will destroy everyone who—" His communication device chirped with an emergency alert. He looked at the screen, and his luminescent skin went pale. "No," he whispered. "I believe," Tarani said calmly, "that your associates are currently being arrested across the sector, and your financial records are being reviewed by the Galactic Justice Authority, and your political career is finished." Maven's hand moved toward the weapon hidden in his robes. A small figure dropped from the ceiling. Ventuna landed between the counselor and Commander Tarani, her dark eyes fixed on the being who had ordered the deaths of everyone she was meant to protect. "I would not do that," she said quietly. Maven looked at the human child standing before him and finally understood what she truly was. His guards reached for their weapons. Yuna moved like wind through grass in 4 seconds. All 3 guards were on the ground, and Maven found himself pinned against the wall, with the child's hand pressed against his chest. Ambassador Cal, Yuna said. Captain Ree, Lieutenant Jisu, and 217 other people, and you killed them for money. Maven's voice trembled. It was just business. No. Yuna replied, it was murder, and now you will face justice for it. She stepped back and allowed Tarani's guards to take custody of the counselor, as Maven was led away in restraints. Medical Officer Haliz approached Yuna with gentle concern in her eyes. It is over, the Fenari said softly. You have done what you set out to do. Yuna watched the counselor disappear down the corridor. For now, what will you do now? Tarani asked. Yuna was silent for a long moment. Commander, during the fighting I protected 3 children and a Kelthian named Saurus, a Fenari called Bree, and a Varoth larva. They are safe in the refugee center. When I was with them, Yuna said slowly, I felt something I have not felt in a long time, and I felt like I was doing what I was meant to do. Not killing enemies, but protecting innocents. She turned to face the towering Kelthian commander. You offered me asylum earlier, and does that offer still stand? Tarani felt surprise ripple through him. You wish to stay here. I cannot go back to Earth. And Project Chrysalis will want to reassign me, and I do not want to be reassigned. She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was smaller. More like the child she appeared to be. I want to choose my own path, and I want to protect people who cannot protect themselves, and I want to matter for something other than being a weapon. Tarani knelt down to meet her eyes. You would be welcome. Here, Yuna Park, and not as a weapon, but as a member of this station's family. Something in Yuna's eyes softened. Thank you, Commander. Holly stepped forward with a question she had been wanting to ask. Yuna, do you ever get to just be a child? Yuna considered the question with all the seriousness it deserved. Then a small smile crossed her face. Genuine this time and warm. I am a child, she said. That is what makes me effective, and no one ever sees. Children coming. She walked away toward the refugee center, where 3 young aliens waited for the human girl, who had saved their lives. Commander Vesk Tarani watched her go, and knew that his understanding of humanity had fundamentally changed. They were not the soft and fragile species the galaxy believed them to be. They were survivors from a death world who turned their own children into guardians of the innocent. And heaven help anyone who underestimated them, because somewhere on this station, a 12-year-old girl was proof that the most dangerous beings in the galaxy were the ones no one ever saw coming. Commander Tarani stood before the tactical display in his temporary command post and watched the chaos unfold across the station. His forces had managed to contain the pirates in several sections, but the enemy still held the main command center. Whoever led this attack had planned it well, cutting off communication arrays and locking down critical systems with encryption codes that would take hours to break. But Tarani's attention kept returning to the security footage that his officers had compiled. Image after image showed the same impossible thing: a small human girl appearing in corridors where moments before pirates had been standing guard. The guards would be found unconscious minutes later, their weapons missing and their communication devices destroyed. She moved through the station like a phantom, never seeing clearly but always leaving evidence of her passage. Play the sequence from Deck 7 again. Tarani ordered. The footage showed 3 pirates escorting a group of captured refugees down a corridor. The lights flickered once when they stabilized. The pirates were on the ground and the refugees were running toward a guard checkpoint. The human girl was nowhere in the frame. How is this possible? Tarani's tactical officer asked with amazement in his voice. She is a child, and those were trained fighters. Tarani did not answer because he had no explanation to offer. Instead, he turned to medical Officer Halise, who had been reviewing the deeper scans she had mentioned. What else have you found? He Eskedhalis pulled up. Holographic display showing human neural architecture, Project Chrysalis, she said. I searched the human databases and found references to a classified program with that name, and the details are sealed, but based on what I can piece together, it appears to be a training protocol for children with exceptional neurological adaptability. Training for what purpose? Protection, Holly said. Humans call them adaptive protection specialists, and they are trained from early childhood to serve as bodyguards and escorts for high-value individuals. Tarani processed this information as the implications became clear. The colony ship, he said slowly. It was not transporting refugees. The manifest listed it as a diplomatic transport carrying representatives to a summit on Lesser Prime. Hollis confirmed. The refugee designation was a cover, and Una Park was likely assigned to protect someone important on that ship. But the ship was destroyed. Yes, and according to the debris analysis, it was destroyed by weapons fire from ships. That knew exactly where it would be and when. Someone had betrayed the transport. Someone had sold the location and killed everyone aboard. Everyone. Except one small girl who had been placed in an escape pod at the last moment. Tarani felt anger rising in his chest. Cold and righteous. She survived, he said. And now she is here, and she is looking for answers. New alert flashed across his display. The pirates had just lost contact with their communications relay. Someone had destroyed the device that allowed them to coordinate their fortress. Tarani almost smiled. She is not just hiding and fighting, he realized. She is dismantling their operation piece by piece. Across the station, Una moved through the ventilation shafts with practiced ease. Her small size allowed her to access routes that adult fighters could never use. She had spent the last hours systematically crippling the pirate operation, destroying their communication network and freeing trapped refugees and leading guard patrols toward enemy positions. But she had a larger purpose. She had recognized the signature of the weapons that destroyed her transport when she analyzed the debris patterns from her escape pod. Those weapons were expensive and rare, available only to those with significant wealth and political connections. Pirates who attacked this station were not random opportunists. They were hired, paid to attack this specific station at this specific time, and somewhere in the command center she would find the evidence she needed to identify who had ordered the death of everyone she was supposed to protect. Tuna dropped silently from a vent into an empty corridor and paused to listen. The fighting had moved to other sections of the station, and this area was quiet. She followed the corridor toward the command center, staying in shadows and moving without sound. Two guards stood at the entrance to the command center. They were bigger than the others, elite soldiers with better armor and heavier weapons. Una studied them for a moment, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device she had taken from one of the unconscious pirates. She tossed it down the corridor, where it clattered against the wall. Both guards turned toward the sound. Una struck before they could turn back. She hit the first guard in the back of the knee while he was off balance, and used his falling body to launch herself at the second. Her palm connected with his chin at precisely the right angle, and he crumpled without a sound. The first guard tried to rise, but she was already there, her fingers finding the pressure point at the base of his skull that would render him unconscious for hours. Both guards fell in less than 3 seconds. Una stepped over their bodies and approached the door inside the command center. The pirate captain sat at the main console, desperately trying to restore communications with his scattered forces. He was a Dasari, one of the elegant and ethereal species that held great political power in the Galactic Council. That was unusual because the Dasari rarely engaged in common piracy. The door slid open and the captain spun around. With his weapon raised, he saw only a small human girl standing in the doorway. "Who are you?" he demanded, his voice cracking with surprise and fear. "Where are my guards?" Yuna stepped into the room and let the door close behind her. "Your guards are sleeping," she said, "and your forces are scattered and your communication network is destroyed, and you have failed." The captain's weapon trembled in his hand. "You are just a child." "Yes," Yuna agreed. "That is what everyone keeps saying." She moved. The captain fired, but she was no longer where she had been. His weapon flew from his grip and clattered across the floor. A moment later, he found himself pinned against the console, with the human girl's hand pressed against his throat. "You were hired to attack this station," Yuna said, her voice flat and emotionless. "Who paid you?" "I do not know what you are talking about." Yuna's grip tightened slightly. "Your ships carry weapons manufactured by the Mevin Corporation," she continued. "Those weapons were used to destroy a diplomatic transport 3 days ago, and everyone died except me, and I want to know who ordered it." The captain's ethereal features twisted with genuine fear. "I cannot tell you," he gasped. "They will kill me." "I will kill you," Yuna said simply. "Right now, unless you give me a name." She would not actually kill him, but he did not need to know that the captain's resolve crumbled. "Counselor Dreth Mevin," he whispered. "He paid us to attack the transport, and then paid us to attack this station. When he learned a survivor had been found, Yuna released him and stepped back." Her expression did not change, but something cold and hard settled behind her eyes. Counselor Mevin, one of the most powerful politicians in the Galactic Council, head of the Mevin Corporation and apparently a murderer. The door to the command center burst open and Commander Vesperani strode in with weapons raised. He took in the scene with one sweeping glance. The unconscious guards in the corridor, the pirate captain slumped against the console, and the human girl standing in the center of the room with a stillness that seemed to bend light around her. "Yuna Park," Tarani said slowly. "I think you and I need to have a conversation about who you really are." Yuna looked at him with eyes that had seen too much for someone her age. "Yes, Commander," she said. "I think we do." The escape pod drifted through the darkness of space like a metal coffin, spinning slowly near the wreckage of what had once been a colony. Transport Ship Commander Vesperani stood at the observation window of processing station Thesser 4 and watched his crew bring the pod into the docking bay. His forearms remained folded across his scaled chest as he considered the situation. The colony ship had been torn apart by weapons fire, and the debris field stretched across thousands of kilometers. Finding any survivors seemed unlikely. Yet here was this single pod with one life sign inside. "Commander," said Medical Officer Hollis, her fox-like ears twitching with concern. "The pod's life support is failing, and we need to extract the occupant immediately." Tarani nodded his massive blue-scaled head and followed Hollis down to the docking bay. As the senior officer of the Galactic Guard, unit assigned to protect this refugee processing station, every soul that came through fell under his responsibility. The bay doors opened with a hiss of pressurized air. A dozen guards stood ready with weapons raised, because protocol demanded caution. With unknown vessels, Tarani watched as the pod's hatch was forced open from the outside. What emerged was not what he expected. A human child climbed out on unsteady legs. She appeared to be perhaps 12 cycles old by human standards, small and thin with dark hair that fell past her shoulders in tangled knot. She clutched a worn stuffed animal against her chest, Some kind of earth creature with long ears. Her eyes were wide and wet with tears as she looked around at the armed aliens surrounding her. "Stand down," Tarani ordered his guards. And they lowered their weapons. He stepped forward and knelt on one knee to bring himself closer to the child's height. Though even kneeling, he towered above her. "You are safe now, little one," he said in Galactic Common, keeping his deep voice as gentle as possible. "Can you tell us your name?" The girl trembled, and her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Yuna," she said. "Yuna Park." Medical Officer Halis moved forward with her scanner already active. "I am detecting elevated stress hormones and minor dehydration," she reported. "But no serious injuries, in her biometrics are reading as baseline human with nothing remarkable." Tarani studied the child as Halis performed her examination. Humans were relatively new to the galactic community. Having achieved faster-than-light travel only 60 cycles ago, they came from a harsh world of extreme temperatures, violent weather, and predatory wildlife. The Galactic Council had classified Earth as a Category 7 death world. Yet somehow these soft and short-lived creatures had survived and even thrived there. This one seemed particularly fragile. "What happened to your ship?" Tarani asked. Yuna's lower lip trembled, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "There was fire," she whispered, "and loud sounds, and everyone was running. And my mother put me in the pod, and then she was gone." The child's grief seemed absolute, and complete. Tarani felt something twist in his chest, an unfamiliar sensation that his species did not often experience. Perhaps it was something like compassion. "We will find out what happened," he promised, "and you will be cared for until we can locate any surviving family members." He rose to his full height and gestured for one of his officers to escort the girl to the refugee processing center as Yuna walked away. Still clutching her stuffed animal, Halis moved to stand beside Tarani. "There is something strange about her stress readings," the Fenari said quietly. Her empathic senses clearly troubled. "Strange how?" Tarani Askedalis twitched her whiskers in the way her species did when puzzled. Her surface emotions read as pure terror and grief. Exactly what you would expect from a traumatized child. But underneath there is something else, and I cannot quite identify it. "Shock, perhaps," Tarani suggested. "Humans are known to experience delayed emotional responses to trauma." "Perhaps," Halis agreed, though she did not sound convinced. The matter was pushed from Tarani's mind over the next several hours as Yuna was processed through the standard refugee protocols. Her genetic scan confirmed her identity as a registered citizen of the Earth. Colonial Authority, her name appeared on the destroyed ships. Passenger manifest alongside a woman listed as her mother, no other family. Connections were found in the galactic database. She was alone in the universe. Tarani assigned her a small private room in the refugee section and ordered his staff to provide whatever comfort items they could find suitable. For a human child, he expected her to sleep for many hours given her ordeal instead. 3 hours later, alarms began screaming throughout the station. "Report." Tarani barked as he strode onto the command deck. 4 ships just dropped out of hyperspace, his tactical officer announced. And they are refusing to respond to hails, and their weapons are charging. Pirates, they had grown bold in recent cycles, attacking refugee stations to capture valuable individuals for ransom. The Galactic Guard had increased patrols, but there were never enough ships to cover every vulnerable point. "All personnel to battle stations," Tarani commanded. "Seal the refugee sections and prepare for boarding actions." The station shook as the first missiles struck the outer shields. Tarani coordinated the defense with cold efficiency born from decades of military service. His Kelthian heritage made him an ideal commander, for his species valued discipline and tactical precision above all else. But the pirates had chosen their moment well. The station's patrol ships were hours away on a scheduled sweep. and the guard unit was outnumbered. Boarders breached the station in 3 locations. Simultaneously, Torian split his forces to respond. But he knew they could not cover every corridor. His concern focused on the refugee sections, where hundreds of displaced beings huddled in fear. "Commander," one of his officers reported through the communication system, "we have a hull breach in Section 7, and multiple refugees are trapped, including several children. Dispatch a rescue team immediately," Tarani ordered. "All teams are engaged with boarders, and there is no one available." Tarani cursed in his native language and prepared to go himself when another report came through. "Commander, sensors showed the breach in Section 7 as being sealed from the inside. But that should not be possible, because there are only refugees in that area." Tarani frowned at his tactical display. Section 7 housed the quarters where the human child had been placed. That could not be a coincidence. "Show me the internal sensors for that section," he demanded. The display flickered and resolved into a grainy image. The corridor was damaged, and atmosphere was venting through a crack. In the outer hall, 3 young aliens huddled together in terror. A Kelthian youth, a Fanari kid, and a Varath larva, and standing between them and the breach was the small human girl named Yunash. Was no longer crying. She was no longer trembling. Her stuffed animal lay forgotten on the floor as she worked at an access panel with hands that moved with mechanical precision. As Tarani watched, she completed whatever adjustment she was making, and the emergency sealant system activated, spraying quick hardening foam across the breach. The atmosphere loss stopped. How does a human child know how to operate emergency systems? Tarani Murmuredalis appeared at his side. "Having watched the same footage, she should not," the Fanari said. "And Commander, look at her face." Tarani looked. The fear was gone from the girl's expression. In its place was something cold and calculating as she assessed her surroundings. With the eyes of someone who had seen far worse than a simple hull breach. "What is she?" Tarani whispered on the screen. Yuna turned toward the corridor's exit, placing herself between the alien children and the direction the pirates would come from. Her stance shifted into something that looked almost like a fighting position, and for the first time since he had seen her climb from that escape pod, Commander Vest Tarani felt the cold touch of uncertainty, because whatever Yuna Park truly was, she was definitely not just a normal human girl. The emergency lights cast everything in red shadows as Yuna Park stood in the damaged corridor and listened to the sounds of chaos echoing through the station behind her. 3 alien children huddled together against the wall. They're different species united by a common terror. The Keltian youth named Saurus tried to appear brave despite the trembling of his forearms. The tiny Fanari kid called Bree had buried her face in her paws and whimpered softly. The Varath larva simply pressed itself into the smallest possible shape, its compound eyes reflecting the crimson light. Yuna turned to face them, and when she spoke, her voice was calm and clear. "I need you to listen to me very carefully," she said in Galactic Common. "Bad people are coming, and I'm going to keep you safe, but you have to do exactly what I tell you." Saurus lifted his scaled head and stared at the human girl with confusion. "You are just a child like us," he said. "How can you protect anyone?" "That is not important right now," Yuna replied. "What matters is that you trust me, and can you do that?" Something in her voice made the young Kelthian pause. There was no fear in her words, no uncertainty, only a quiet confidence that seemed impossible for someone her size and age. He found himself nodding before he could think about why. "Good," Yuna said. "Now follow me and stay close and make no sounds." She led them away from the sealed breach and deeper into the station's maintenance sections. The corridors here were narrow and dark, with pipes running along the ceiling and access panels lining the wall. Yuna moved through this maze as if she had walked it 100 times before. never hesitating at intersections and never taking a wrong turn. How do you know where to go? Bree whispered, her small voice barely audible. I memorized the station layout when I arrived. Una answered. Simplisaurus exchanged a glance with the Varth larva, who communicated its own confusion through a subtle shift of its antennae. No one memorized an entire station layout in 3 hours, no. One except perhaps a military officer or a spy. They traveled through the maintenance tunnels for several minutes before Una suddenly stopped and raised her hand. The alien children froze behind her. Footsteps echoed from somewhere ahead, heavy and careless. The boots of someone who did not care about being here. Una pressed herself against the wall and gestured for the children to do the same. A moment later, a pirate rounded the corner. He was a Drexian, a muscular reptilian species, known for their violent tendencies and short tempers. His weapon was raised and his yellow eyes swept the corridor with predatory intent. He spotted the children immediately. A cruel smile spread across his scaled face as he raised his weapon toward them. He never completed the motion. Una moved like water flowing downhill, smooth and inevitable and impossibly fast. She closed the distance between them in a heartbeat, and her small hands found precise points on the pirate's body. She struck his wrist, and his weapon clattered to the floor. She struck his throat, and his attempted cry became a strangled gasp. She struck the nerve cluster behind his knee, and his leg buckled beneath him as he fell. She caught his head and guided it into the wall with just enough force to render him unconscious. The entire encounter lasted perhaps 2 seconds. Una stood over the fallen pirate, and her breathing remained steady and slow, as if she had done nothing more strenuous than walk across a room behind her. The alien children stared with eyes wide and mouths hanging open. What are you? Saurus breathed. Una did not answer. Instead, she dragged the unconscious pirate into a side passage and stripped him of his communication device and sidearm. She examined the weapon briefly, then set it aside, choosing to remain unarmed. We need to move, she said. There will be more of them. She led the children deeper into the station until they reached a small storage compartment filled with emergency supplies. You will wait here, Una instructed as she ushered them inside. Do not make any noise and do not open this door for anyone except me or the Galactic Guard. Where are you going? Bree asked, her kid's voice trembling. Una knelt down to meet the Fenari's eyes. For just a moment, something warm flickered across her expression, something almost like tenderness. There are people who need help, she said. I will come back for you, and I promise. She sealed the storage compartment and vanished into the shadows of the corridor. Meanwhile, Commander Tarani fought his way through the station's central hub with a squad of his best guards. The pirates were everywhere, and for everyone they took down, 2 more seemed to appear. His communication device crackled with fragmented reports from across the station. Refugee sections overrun, guard teams pinned down, casualties mounting, and woven through all of this chaos were strange reports that made no sense. A small figure moving through the maintenance tunnels. Pirates found unconscious with no explanation. Trapped refugees suddenly freed from sealed compartments. Commander, one of his officers said, we found the children from Section 7. Tarani turned sharply. Where? Storage compartment on deck. 12, and they are unharmed, and they say the human girl saved them. Tarani processed this information as he dispatched a team to secure the children. Where is the girl now? Unknown, sir, but the children said she went to help others. Tarani's forearms tightened around his weapons as he considered the implications. A 12-year-old human child was moving through a station full of armed pirates and somehow surviving. More than surviving. She was fighting back. He found the unconscious Drexian where Una had left him. The pirate was beginning to stir, so Tarani had him restrained and questioned. What happened to you? Tarani demanded. The Drexian's eyes were unfocused and confused. A ghost, he muttered. A small ghost with human eyes that moved like nothing I have ever seen. Tarani examined the pirate's injuries. The strikes had been precise and economical, targeting nerve clusters and pressure points with expert accuracy. This was not the work of a frightened child. This was the work of someone who had trained for years, maybe decades, in the art of incapacitating opponents without killing them. Halise. Tarani spoke into his communicator. I need you to run deeper scans on the human girl's medical records and look for anything unusual. I am already doing so. The Fenari's voice replied, And Commander, what I am finding is disturbing. Tell me. Her baseline biometrics appeared normal because someone wanted them to appear normal, but deeper analysis reveals microscarring on her hands consistent with at least 8 years of intensive physical training, and her neural pathway density is nearly 3 times higher than standard human parameters. Tarani felt the pieces clicking together in his mind. She is not a refugee. He said, No, Halise agreed. I believe she was on that colony ship for a very specific purpose, and I believe she allowed herself to be found on the security monitors scattered throughout the station. Glimpses of a small figure appeared and disappeared. Like Smokey Una Park was hunting, and the pirate did not even know they were her. Tarani watched the footage and made a decision. All units. He announced over the guard frequency. There is a human child moving through the station, and she is not a threat. And I repeat, she's not a threat. He paused and added words he never thought he would say. She is an asset, and do not interfere with her unless she requires assistance. The station shook with another explosion somewhere. In the darkness, a pirate screamed and then went silent, and Commander Vesk Tarani began moving toward the command center because he suspected that was where this strange and deadly child would eventually appear.